Hey, everybody. My name is Amanda Nerstad, and this is my husband,
Hi.
Gary Nerstad.
Hi, I'm Gary.
We are doing the parent breakout group, and ours is meant more for just an open discussion. And parenting is challenging in itself, so we are in no shape experts by anything. So this is an open discussion to discuss how is everyone doing as parents, and have you told your children what are ways that you have gone about it. One of the things for us, I was diagnosed in 2016, and at first I did not want to tell my kids anything. And I wanted them to be normal and enjoy school and everything like that. But then all of a sudden, Isabella, at the time she was 7, she gets off the bus and starts crying and says, there's a little girl in my class that said Isabella's mom has lung cancer and is going to die. So it was a parent fail on our end, but that is when we decided to be open and honest to our kids. They know, that mommy has lung cancer, and it is more just we try to be open and honest on a kid-friendly level. And this is why we're just here to discuss. A couple things also is there's a organization called Pickles group that was started by Eric Lavacek, an ALK patient. And we are going to do an ALK talk. So it's a licensed therapist that can come and talk to us and just how to talk to your kids. And if there's interest in that, please let us know. We also have our ALK Moms Facebook group that we talk about discussion and those types of things.
Yeah, a couple things here too, and you guys are welcome to type in any questions you might have. Going back to original diagnosis, now everybody on here has probably kids that are different ages. So we've had groups where we had kids that are 30 years old all the way down to 2 years old. So when Amanda was originally diagnosed, we realized we had to control that message, and we were going to control that message to our children, in their terms, right? So we've always been somewhat open with them about what the appointments look like. About she takes pills to keep her cancer at bay. So we try to be very open. Now, again, they were 4 and 7 when Amanda was diagnosed, and now they're going to be 10 and 13 this fall. So we have different conversations with them now. The 13-year-old's a little more quiet, doesn't share her feelings as much, but we have noticed that they ask questions occasionally on their time frame too. So everyone's in their own boat here, and we don't certainly want to say this is just the ages of our kids. And so if you have teenagers, if you have different ages, I don't know how well we can answer those questions, but we'll do the best we can. So but controlling that message, I think, is very, very, very important. And I think it's paid dividends for us, so they're not getting information from other parents who are on Dr. Google and think that they have all the answers for lung cancer. So that's what we've done. I don't know if you guys have any questions, but we have a few more things that we can address too, if you don't.
As far as the two programs, so there's Pickles Group that was started by Eric Lavacek. She is one of the founders, and she started it because she wanted something for her kids. How we have our support group, which is awesome, but what do they have? And not to put it all on cancer and whatnot. So what are things that they can do? So I did reach out to Cassie, and she said they're very interested in helping our organization. And please email me also if they can do a support virtual group for kids, and we could do it ages 5 through 10, 11 through the different ages. Is it something that you all would be interested in? And if so, let me know. Do you think your kids would want to interact with other kids? And she can kind of moderate that and have discussion points. And that's one option. And we definitely would like to do an ALK talk for the parents of someone who can help us on how to talk to your kids or things that we can do. So and then another thing that this weekend, Camp Kesem has been brought up a bunch this weekend. It is for children whose parents have cancer. And sometimes it's hard to get into. At least they're all over the country. And at least Nashville was full this summer. And I did speak with Josh at Pfizer, one of our sponsors this weekend. And he said, if there is any ALK parent that is interested in Camp Kesem for their children, please let me know, and I will connect them with the right people, because I have help there. So if anyone's interested in Camp Kesem, please let us know.
Can I ask you a question here? Can we type in anything? Is that okay?
Well, you can, but these are the questions that people are sending you.
Yeah, because I was just, so you guys can have the information. We've kind of said it verbally, but it was pickles. So like pickle the food you eat, right? So I know we're going through things fairly fast, and then it's Camp Kesem. How do you spell
Kesem?
Yeah. So just so you guys know.
There you go. Thanks, Jeff.
There you go, Jeff. Oh, Jeff. Hey, Jeff.
Hi, Jeff.
We do have some questions. You want me to ask the questions and you can answer the questions? So let's see here. I'm going to go up. Here's one. How did you talk to your 4-year-old about it? Mine was 4 when diagnosed earlier this year, but we didn't tell her how serious it could be. So if you want to.
And like we said earlier, our girls were 4 and 7. So my 7-year-old found out from another girl in her class. And that's when we decided to be open and honest. We said, mommy has lung cancer, how far do you get into ALK and all this? But, it's important. I take these pills, I showed them the pills, I take these pills and this helps keep the cancer away. And I do things every 3 months. They're like x-rays for the doctor to look inside my body to make sure that I'm okay. And for us, we travel to Baltimore every 3 months. So for them, that's kind of something different. So we try to keep them on a schedule. And when that happens, we try to keep everything positive. And I think one way that for our children that they were able to control something is it kind of happened organically. I write down a summer bucket list every year, and we're writing our summer bucket list, and they said, lemonade stand. So I'm like, all right, let's do lemonade stand this summer. And Isabella says, why don't we do it for a cause? And I was like, that's a great idea. So I'm writing down, what would you like? Thinking she would say for all the little puppies or an animal shelter, which would have been fine. But instead she said, why don't we do it for lung cancer? And I was definitely touched. And so that's how our little Lemonade for Lungs kind of got started. And we kind of, it started out really small and emailing friends and family. And now we actually have sponsors, and we have a bounce house and a face painter. And that's something that we do as a family now, our annual Lemonade for Lungs to try. And I think it gives them control, something they can control, and they have a say in. And we sit down as a family of what's important this year. What are things you want, a dance competition and all these different things. That's kind of how we go. We try to make it fun, as weird as that sounds. That's kind of how we've talked to them about it.
So Michael and Melanie kind of addressed some of yours about your ages of kids. Let's see here. There was a question here about, do we provide regular updates to the girls or just answer questions when they ask them? Obviously, and I don't want to be constantly talking about it or keep it from them, just looking what others do. That's a terrific question.
Mm-hmm.
And now that we have kids that are, one's approaching a teenager, they're a little more quiet, don't share their feelings quite as much. But I'll let Amanda answer that one too. So
I think both regular updates for us when we come back. We always try to stay positive, give thumbs up. We had a great appointment. And I ask them questions, sometimes when I'm driving, or, hey, how's everything going? I've got an appointment. How are you doing with all of this? Is this weird for you that your mom has lung cancer? Sometimes they ask, or sometimes they'll talk about it. Sometimes they don't, and again, these are just what works for us. So, and sometimes they're open to it, and sometimes they just look out the window and I move on. And I'm interested on how everyone else, how are you, what works for you all as well?
yeah. While we get to chat, there's another question here about how many folks are using therapists for their children. I guess I'm assuming it's children. We do, as a matter of fact, we just started recently. We haven't got too far there. I think they're still building up trust with the therapist. She's trying some different tactics, but I think one thing that we do think about is when we don't hear much from our kids and there's silence, but then then all of a sudden a question out of nowhere pops up. So it's in their minds. You don't know how much weight it is on them. So it's impossible to measure that. But when we think about what's that question really mean? And then we try to ask very open-ended questions versus, hey, do you know mommy has cancer? Or, ask them, what does cancer mean to you? Or what do you think she does when she goes to her doctor's appointments? And try to keep it open-ended to get them talking, because as soon as they start opening up, it tends to have a better communication than the yes or no answers that you can get. So let's see here. What else? So yes, I think a lot of people are using therapists, and we've had several in-person breakout groups, and I think I would probably say at least half the folks were using therapy in some way, shape, or form. Let's see here. What about children, experience with children, but all family members? Some family members kind of have their feelings on and their opinions on things. How do we function in getting the message across to other family members? I don't know. You have any thoughts on that? Because we've talked about that quite a bit.
We have some family members that never ask us of this is totally on a side note of parenting. We have some family members that never ask us how I'm doing, how Gary, deals with this as a caregiver and whatnot. And I used to get kind of irritated with it, of like, we are going through this and no one asks us about it. But I also think everyone has their own way of dealing with this, and I can't expect and kind of know how they should be feeling. And to be honest, I just try my best. There are times when I get still irritated, but I just try not to let it bother me. But and that's brought up, I feel like, in our support group a lot too.
Yeah, and here's one. This is some kind of advice to the group that came through the chat. And this was, we are in a quote unquote need to know basis with our kids. They have kids that are 13 and 15. We don't lie to them, but we don't tell them if we get a bad scan. So the whole thing here is, how much do we insulate the kids? Like, they've already, it's hard enough being a 13 and a 15-year-old without lung cancer in your life. So I think that's a really good tactic, to not lie, but also give them enough information, but not scare them away either. So I think that's pretty good advice. Here's another one. Someone's daughter did therapy for the last 3 years, and they're on and off basis. And the 15-year-old has refused. I know that too. Our 12-year-old refuses. Diagnosis happened when the kids are 10 and 8. So yeah, that's kind of a similar path that we're on. Here we had Dana. Dana was my older teens. I asked them about how much they want to know, but they make sure they can ask anything. I think that's really important, trust factor.
And I don't know, maybe the caregivers can touch on this too. My journey is we were talking about this in the in-person breakout group, and it's a balance of, you want, knowing that your time is limited, and you want to, spoil them and be this amazing, fun mom, but you also have to be a parent, and be the strict mom sometimes. So it's a balance sometimes that I struggle with. And then Gary, as a caregiver, he's got his own, things of, sometimes it's better when there are times when, and I don't know if that's just our girls, but you talk to them differently sometimes about my disease than I talk to them.
Sometimes they'll approach me with a question that they might not want to ask Amanda about. Maybe they're scared to hear what the answer is going to be. And then I might, maybe the conversation is a little different when she's not in the room. So we have, by the way, someone just chimed in. We have Karen, whose kids are 24 and 26. They both have their own therapists, so it's a safe place for both of them. So again, common theme here is that it seems like therapy is a good tool that people are using if they can convince their kids to get there. So.
And chime in too if you think holding a virtual Zoom for your kids. So, and having it moderated by, someone from the Pickles group. Is that, if that's something you think that you would be interested in, please let us know. We definitely are going to do an ALK talk for the parents, but what can we do to actually help our kids besides all of us saying, okay, get your kids in therapy or whatnot. And once again, Camp Kesem is a great organization. And I think I touched on this, but, Pfizer said, if Josh from Pfizer said, if they have any issues, I've got connections. So I will do my best to make sure every ALK parent has the right connections to get their kids in Camp Kesem for sure. And I know, people like Jeff, who I think is still on here, his kids have gone, and Jeff and Erica just talked very highly of it.
We had this is some good advice here too, and this is actually something that we tried as well. And this was talking about using journaling where each child has one, and then they back and forth between the parents. Kind of each person can write something, and it allows them a different outlet to express where they are, in their own personal journeys with lung cancer. So I think that's a pretty good tactic, because some kids aren't as verbal. Some kids like to write. There's a lot of different things. I think that's a good tactic. Oh, here we go. This is Jeff chiming in about how Camp Kesem has been just wonderful for his kids. And I've talked to Jeff extensively about this, and it's a great tool if that's something your family wants to pursue. And Jeff is probably the best one to contact on it, quite honestly. So go ahead.
Eileen, hi, Eileen. We just told our 5-year-old, we read him a book to explain cancer to him. We only read 2 pages before he ran off crying, since he has asked questions, and we have been able to talk to him about it. Yeah. Any advice on finding the right therapist? I think, and hopefully others will chime in on how to find the right therapist, because I think that's tricky. I didn't love our first therapist that we saw, but I think that we're on the right road with this other therapist. And it's a balance too with my daughter. I feel like when I talk to therapists first, they always want to put, I feel like there's a red target on us, right? They always put, well, she has these issues because her mom has lung cancer. Is that the reason? Or is it because she's a 12-year-old girl who's trying to figure out that, preteen stage as well? And it's a balance on that end. But I feel like our first therapist, our first therapist kept blaming it on the mom, but I don't know. It's a hard thing to try to figure out.
And one thing I was going to add in is, hopefully everyone on this call is putting a tremendous amount of time into building their medical team for the patient, whomever that is, right? And I would suggest doing the same thing when shopping for a therapist, if you will, to do your homework, talk to people in the community, try to get references, because you don't want to bounce around. We've done this. We bounced around to some therapists that just wasn't real effective. And I think we might have found one now, but do the research, put the time in, because it's very important. And so I just say, make sure you put as much time into that as you are with your medical care. Do you think contacting a children's hospital for Yes. Absolutely. I think they'll probably have some tools and resources. And if not, they can refer you to folks that are probably in similar situations, right? So,
and Stephen, that's a great idea. Don't overlook the social worker at your cancer center and looking for support options for your kids.
I think, one thing too, we always have gone back and forth, especially for younger kids, when you're in elementary school and you might have one teacher that kind of runs the class for several hours a day, whether or not to acknowledge it with the teacher so they can keep their eye on your child to see if there's any signs of anything that they might be dealing with. We've done it both routes. We've had conferences with those teachers ahead of time and explaining, hey, this is what we're going through. And we've not done it too. So I honestly don't know which way is the right way to do it. I feel like sometimes we gave a little too much information, and then perhaps they let our kids, I I don't know if slide would be the right word, but they
And
had
they
they had a
should.
little different curve than the rest of the kids, and that's not what we wanted at all. So I don't know. Do you want to add anything about school and teachers and how you handle?
Yeah, and I'm
There's
curious what.
school counselors are there too. So.
Yeah, when I was first diagnosed, we let the school counselor know, and she would have a chat with her at least once a week. But then it ends up they were pulling her from her class, and she didn't like that because she felt different because she wanted to be normal, just like everyone else. So we pulled that and did some therapy on the side after school. But I'm curious of other people. Do you tell your teachers, your kids' teachers, or do you not? And and that's good. I'm reading Karen. Um,
Well,
give
yeah, I'm sorry. This was kind of an interesting question. This was about trouble with girls because they're so young, and then a breakdown when husband and wife are out of town, right?
Mhm.
And we had this situation where Amanda, upon diagnosis, she was admitted in the hospital for a good amount of time, several days before they diagnosed her, right? And we didn't realize at the time that when we were going off to appointments, which we were traveling, our kids weren't sure if she was coming home. They weren't sure how long the stay was going to be. And so we had to become upfront about what to expect at the appointments and kind
Mhm.
of, hey, this is just a check-in. We're just getting a checkup. We're looking at her blood, nothing major, because they had thought that if you leave, you're going to be gone for 4 or 5 days and in the hospital. And that wasn't the case whatsoever. So I thought that's a really kind of an interesting point there, because there is some,
Mhm.
there's, they don't want them to be scared. And I think that's about the transparency and then communicating what those doctor's appointments look like, right? So
Stephen had a really great point is don't overlook the social worker at your cancer center.
mhm.
And looking at support options. That's great. Um, Stephen also said Camp Kesem. That's a great resource. Karen, you've mentioned your support group a couple of times this weekend. How do I find a support group through ALK Facebook? The support group for the kids. Now, we actually don't have any. And no adults. Are you in the? We can't see anyone. So, are you in the ALK Facebook support group? And I highly recommend that if you go to our website alkpositive.org. Oh, you are in that. Okay, perfect. And there's also ALK Moms. If you're not in the ALK Moms group, I'm sorry, dads. And maybe we need, this whole weekend a learning thing of what are things that we need to improve on. But right now, I do recommend the ALK Moms group. Things like this are talked about all the time. Recently it's about somebody posted about anxiety and what they're doing with their kids, and it was just a good discussion with other moms to talk about with someone, others that have this disease as well.
Amanda, could you talk about the question from Brian is about what is ALK Talk?
ALK Talk is a really great resource that go on alkpositive.org. And there is a section called ALK Talk. And we have experts talking on there at least twice a month on Sunday evenings. And we'll talk. We'll have, Dr. Camage has been on there, Dr. Lamb, and we have experts talking about specific topics that you can learn about. And it's a really great resource. And so we do want to do an ALK Talk for parents and have a licensed therapist come in and talk about, how to talk to your kids and whatnot. So I highly recommend ALK Talks. If you
It's online. It's on Sunday nights usually.
Sunday evenings.
Sunday.
There's also other and Dan, I think you're on here, but there's also other, online classes that you can take that are offered during the week. But I also wanted to say too, we're kind of running short on time, through the Pickles group, and basically what she was saying that I just wanted to say too is her biggest thing is be honest in answering your kids' questions. Use simple language that your child can understand. Don't be afraid to use the word cancer. Let children know it's okay to feel sad, mad, scared, or confused. Let them know about expected changes in their routines. Let them know about any expected change in your appearance or behavior. Don't force information. Answer questions just as they come up. And it is okay to share your feelings with your children. It is okay to let your children see you cry, and give your children small age appropriate jobs so that they feel involved. And so this is kind of what the pickles. I have a what we're giving on in person is we have like a pickles support group. I'm sorry, I'm just putting it in front of you. We have this pickles support group that I will be putting in what I think I'm trying to figure out how to get it to you all. And if anyone has any questions, my email is amanda.nerstad@alkpositive.org. I'm happy to answer any questions, or if I don't, by no means are we are far from parent experts, but I can help direct you to the people that we need to. But this is a great support kit that I think is helpful, and I'd love to pass it on and email it to anyone who's interested in getting this. That's for sure. Maybe Al could do a family Zoom meeting one night where kids can see. I think that's a great idea. That's a really great idea. Yes, and everybody goes about this disease on their own way, and everyone, it's a tough journey to take, just for myself, for us as a couple. And one thing that Gary said too, not only for your kids, but also it's so important to continue date nights, of keeping your family unit, because I feel like as long as we're okay, then our kids are better, because we've got to
give yourself some grace.
Mhm.
And as sometimes we're better parents when we do, be a little selfish with our time and we go out and have a date night. So
Mhm.
make sure you take care of yourselves, because as you take care of yourselves, you can be better parents
Mhm.
too. And that goes for I'm a caregiver too. As caregivers, we got to really make sure that we take care of ourselves too. So
Mhm. And again,
any closing thoughts?
somebody said repeat your email. It is amanda.nerstad@alkpositive.org. Please reach out. I'm happy to help.
Spell it.
Nerstad is NERSTAD. Great. Thank you all so much. We are having a great weekend here, and we're glad that you're here virtual. And let's finish it up, and hope everyone's having a good weekend.
Happy parenting.